Hello and welcome to Anime Memories, and on this episode, I'm going to be talking about Maria Watches Over Us. After I was finished with Aoi Hana, I started scouring the internet for other great Yuri anime, and this was one of the more common recommendations. So I watched it and I really got into it. However, it was only much later on that I realised that this isn't a Yuri. It's actually a Class S. They're similar genres, so it's understandable where this mix-up came from, but there's one key difference between the two. Class S is more about girls being close friends, whereas in Yuri's, it's about full-on romance. This didn't really matter though, because I loved it anyway. It's a beautiful show about growing up and making the transition from adolescence to adulthood. So, let's get into it. At Lillian Girls Academy, second and third year students are encouraged to become the older sister to a younger student, providing them with the support and advice they need to become well-adjusted adults. In the Rose Mansion, which is basically student council headquarters for the academy, a second-year student named Sachiko is being pressured to find a little sister. So she opens the door, grabs the first underclassman she sees and says, "Here you go, she'll do." That underclassman was Yumi Fukuzawa, and the anime follows her as she deals with the trials and tribulations of teenage life with Sachiko by her side. In terms of a main plot, there really isn't one. The characters go to high school and deal with fairly normal high schooler problems. For someone like me who enjoys storyline based anime, this would usually be a massive red flag, but here, it was fine. It took me a while to figure out why I enjoyed this despite it not fitting my tastes, and I came up with a few reasons, with the first one being the great dialogue. All of the characters, especially the members of the student council, talk in a very formal manner. While this may annoy some people because they use a lot of old-fashioned words, I like the way everyone was written. To begin with, it matches the setting really well. Lillian Academy is a prestigious all-girls school, so it makes sense that its students would talk in this way. It also makes the characters look more respectable. By using a formal dialect, it shows that they're mature, dignified, and that they hold their peers in high regard. Although this aura of gracefulness is often broken by the fact that they're still teenagers and they frequently let their emotions get the better of them. Now, this is to be expected in a show about adolescence. You're obviously going to get some wild mood swings. However, this may be the most melodramatic anime I've ever seen, and I don't make that statement lightly. I've seen Clannad After Story, Anohana, Nana, all of which have been thrown out as being extremely melodramatic. But at least in those shows, the drama often revolves around fairly serious topics. After Story covers the topic of grief. Anohana also deals with death, specifically how it can cause strain on current relationships. And Nana talks about how heartbreaking it is to be cheated on. Are all the conflicts in these anime extremely serious? No. Is a lot of it exaggerated? Yes, absolutely. However, in comparison, the conflicts in Maria Watches Over Us are much more trivial. For example, there's a multi-episode arc where the main issue is that Yumi doesn't know what to buy her big sister for Valentine's Day. And there are tears shed during these episodes as well. This isn't just first world problems, no. This is first world teenage white girl problems. Well, actually they're Japanese and, fuck it, moving on. The contrived nature of some of these conflicts is made even worse by the slow slice of life pacing. Having a slow pace isn't inherently bad, but when you combine it with how insignificant the problems can be, it can sometimes feel as if they're dragging everything out to make it seem more dramatic. So if the conflicts are often about such minor nothings, why did I care? Well, even if this can seem overblown, it manages to maintain this sense of relatability. As a teenager, I remember getting extremely upset about certain issues that, looking back, were so stupidly small. I'm somewhat ashamed that I spent so much time worrying about crap that didn't matter. So whenever the characters were going through some kind of hardship, I would completely understand, because I had many of the same feelings when I was young. At some point, we've all felt unworthy, we've all felt insecure, and we've all felt helpless when confronted with a brick wall of stress. While this anime is a very melodramatic portrayal of adolescence, It's also a very honest portrayal, and I love that about it. Another thing that I love about the show is that at its core, it's a coming of age story, or more accurately, it's a series of coming of age stories. During its 4 seasons, we get introduced to many different characters, all of which have their own personal struggles, and through help from their peers, they're able to overcome these struggles and grow into level-headed young ladies. Yumi in particular grew a lot. She starts off as shy and unconfident, but by the end, she matures greatly and now is in the position where she can give advice to younger students who are in the same place she was. The same thing is true for Sachiko. She began as overly mean-spirited and self-centered. When watching the first season back, I was shocked at how childish she behaved. It's a far cry from the Sachiko at the end that's extremely kind and charming. So a large amount of the runtime is focused on the character development, and this is where the slow pacing works in the show's favour, because with all of the girls, their change is gradual. It takes all 4 seasons for them to complete their transformations. This is a luxury that many modern anime don't have. They only get around 13 episodes, so they have to quickly build up their main characters, and then they gotta move on. With this show, they slow things down, they use their time more efficiently, and because of that, they ended up with a well-rounded and likeable cast. With characters this endearing, it would usually be difficult for me to pick a favourite because I love them all so much. But there was one girl who was so enjoyable to watch that she separated herself from everyone else, and that was Sei Sato, who's also known as Rosa Gigantea. Regardless of the situation, she always acts very jovial, and this will often lead to her causing a ton of mischief and messing with other students in order to get a funny reaction. However, she's also one of the most considerate members of the student council, therefore, she's a person Yumi frequently uses for emotional support. On top of that, Sei has a flirtatious side to her personality, and initially, I thought this was just more of her being a prankster, but they went much deeper with it. Now, in order to properly discuss this, I'm going to have to give some minor spoilers, so if you don't want any of that, feel free to click on this timestamp right here. Okay, so Sei is actually homosexual, and the show explores this in an episode where she gets involved in a lesbian relationship during her 2nd year. This turned out to be one of my favourite romance stories in all of anime. The writing was solid, the drama was compelling, and it seems like a story that could actually happen in real life. I also thought that this episode was a clever way to let the audience know that this is a Class S and not a Yuri. It's as if the creators were saying, look, we know these girls do a lot of intimate things, they hold hands, they hug each other, but they're not lesbians, no. This is what true lesbianism looks like. Nevertheless, I'm glad this episode was included. The show's better for it. So, this next section is going to be pretty short because with the technical aspects, there's not much to talk about. The visuals are unimpressive since the artwork's fairly bland and the animation's natural enough not to be distracting, but it always has this slight stiffness to it. This looks like it was made cheaply, and being that it's a 4-season anime from a niche genre, the budget was probably pretty small. Speaking of unimpressive, we have the soundtrack, which is the same orchestral crap that's in every slice of life-ish anime. Again, there's not really much I can say on it. To be clear, neither the visuals nor the music are bad. The quality is perfectly fine. They just don't contribute anything. Although one good thing I can say about them is that they don't detract from the story or characters, and that's what's important here. By describing this as a melodramatic and honest portrayal of adolescence, some of you may have gotten the impression that this anime takes a negative view of high school, but it's actually fairly uplifting. Maria Watches Over Us lets you know that there will be hard times, there will be moments that are so daunting that you're going to want to run away and never come back. However, if you open yourself up and allow your friends to help, you can overcome anything. So if you're going through high school and you're struggling, even if you're a boy, I think this would be really therapeutic for you. Adults will be able to get a lot out of this as well. Even if your days in high school are long past, this is still a very relaxing and enjoyable anime, so I hope many of you choose to check it out. So anyway, Thank you very much for watching. If you have any feedback, please leave a comment, and if you like this video and want to see more, please subscribe as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.